We're going to talk about the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Alright, that's cool. You guys can join in here. What you need in the building, if you guys don't know my channel, my name is Anson Phillip. I'm also called What You Need for boxing, what you need for health, etc. We're going to talk a little bit about certain fighters that people said don't belong in the International Boxing Hall of Fame and why they are there. Okay, so the International Boxing Hall of Fame, first of all, is to keep in remembrance certain boxers and their contributions in boxing. This is not just boxers, but also people in boxing. Memorable people. So this is what it's all about, really. Okay, now let me talk a little bit about certain fighters. I'm going to start with guys associated with Mayweather first, and then I'm going to talk about guys associated with other fighters. I usually talk a lot about Floyd Mayweather. I think he is what he claims to be the best ever. I believe that because of the evidence that is supporting there. Now, I've spoken to a number of people online. All right. Okay. Yeah, I've spoken to many different people online, and I've realized that a number of people, I've had discussions with them, and they're telling me that certain boxers are not going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. And I've explained why these boxers will go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. First of all, from Floyd's resume. So let me go start off with that. I was just watching Icons of Boxing, which is hosted by Dougie Fisher and also by another gentleman, Hispanic gentleman from the ring. We're interviewing Miguel Cotto, Zab Judah, and also Paulie Malignaggi. And it was Dougie Fisher who said this, and I've heard people in the business talk about it, with respect to Zab Judah, that Dougie Fisher expects Zab Judah to very soon go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, and he also felt the same for Miguel Cotto. At the time, Miguel Cotto was not inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame this year. Now, I'm going to say this and be straight with it. The reason Zab Judah will be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, the primary reason, is because he is the last free belt undisputed welterweight champion of the world. Okay? Corey Spinks is already inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, and I expect Zab Judah to be as well. That is an achievement that, undisputed, that not even Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, all these great legends did not accomplish. So, for that primary reason, just like Terrence Crawford being undisputed champion at junior welterweight, pretty much making him a sure International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, as is the case with Alexander Usyk, etc. These guys, Canelo Alvarez, they're sealed into the Boxing Hall of Fame because it's very hard to become a four-belt undisputed champion. That's the first thing. Of course, Zab Judah also having a ridiculous resume in terms of beating guys like Junior Witter, and he's beaten guys like legendary fighters like Corey Spinks, Junior Witter, Lucas Matisse, and the list goes on and on. And not only that, but having faced every single great fighter that you could think about at 140 and 147. Facing the likes of Miguel Cotto, Floyd Mayweather, Amir Khan, Paulie Malignaggi, Danny Garcia. Okay, Zab Super Judah, Castillo. These are all a lot of them are Hall of Fame material. So, I mean, he's had his plethora of Hall of Famers. He's beaten one Hall of Famer, which is Corey Spinks. Zab Judah is going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. It's not if, but, or maybe. A lot of people say, well, Zab Judah will not go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm saying, no. You better check that man's resume again and that man's career. That man has a hell of a resume. He's a six-time world champion. Six-time world champion. Okay, he has beaten, I believe it is 5 or 6 world champions. and then he lost to, I think it is 4 or 5 world champions. Okay, he's definitely going to be going down to the Boxing Hall of Fame. In addition to all his accomplishments, some people say Arturo Gatti, what is he doing as a Boxing Hall of Famer? I'm going to break it down for you guys. Arturo Gatti is Zab Judah is also a 2-divisional world champion. I believe he's what is this, free time junior lightweight world champion. Okay, 3 times, and I believe he's also a 3-belt welterweight world champion. So if y'all don't know, he's a 6-time 2-divisional world champion. I mean, you gotta have respect for that. Okay, and the names this guy went through. I mean, come on now. Chop Corley is another guy who he's not going to go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame, but he faced everybody. Zab and Chop Corley were proteges of the great Pernell Whitaker, and Pernell Whitaker faced everybody. And Chop Corley didn't win as many pivotal. In fact, he never beat any Hall of Famers. He faced everybody, but he had more losses than wins, and so he has kind of like, it looks more like a journeyman record. But he's been rough and rugged. He's faced everybody. We're talking to Amigo Cottos of the world. We're talking to Marcos Maidanas, Lucas Matisse's. Chapter Corley's faced the Randolph Baileys. Zab Judah's. Chapter Corley faced the Floyd Mayweathers. He's faced a number of Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers, and he's got a hell of a resume. Okay, Chap Corley. But he just never beat a Hall of Famer, and he didn't have as much wins, and he didn't become world champion multiple times. That was the thing with Chop Corley. But he put on always hella competitive fights. And still in great shape to this day. But when we talk about Boxing Hall of Famers, you have to look at their accomplishments, and you're always looking at who they face, who they beat. And Arturo Gatti faced, I believe it was 4 or 5 or 6 world champions. You're talking about guys like Leonard Duran. We're talking about guys like he faced Floyd Mayweather. He faced Oscar De La Hoya. He faced Floyd Patterson's son, Tracy Harris Patterson. He faced Raul, not Raul Marquez, not Rosario. Anyway, it's a world champion, Calvin Grove. He's faced. There's a lot of different names, but the names are slipping my mind right now. Calvin Grove. We got he was a lightweight world champion, and he went up to super lightweight. I can't remember what his name is right now. A number of guys. He was beaten by Carlos Baldomir, but that was at the end of his career. And again, Arturo Gatti, I think he faced, like I said, 4 or 5 world champions he beat. He also beat some top quality guys. He's known for the Mickey Ward fights, which he made more difficult for himself. But he also beat Gianluca Branco, I think it was, to win the title. And then I think the WBC super lightweight title. And then he defended against Leonard Duran, as well as, not John Molino. Well, I keep on seeing John. The guy that beat also Azuma Nelson, I can't remember his name right now. He beat him as well. That's another former world champion. Arturo Gatti also beat a Hall of Famer, I believe. I can't remember who it was. I think it's the same guy who I keep on mixing up with John Molina for some reason. Jesse James Lear. That's the guy. He beat Jesse James Lear, who's going down in the Boxing Hall of Fame for sure. So, Arturo Gatti, 2-time world champion, beating, I think it's 5 or 6 world champions, one of which will be a Hall of Famer if he's not a Hall of Famer already. And he also got beaten by, I believe it is, 2 Hall of Famers, which would be Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya. And he was beaten by one or two world champions, as well as he was beaten by a high top quality opponent in Ivan Robinson. Okay. As well as Angel Manfredi. I believe Angel Manfredi beat him, and Ivan Robinson also beat him. Angel Manfredi was a top contender. So Arturo Gatti should belong in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Of course, they really inducted him in there for his heart and his blood and guts fighting, but he was actually a very good fighter. Actually, very good textbook jab. He had a hell of a jab. The thing with Arturo Gatti was he liked to fight too much, and so he would break out into a fight and try to get you back, and so that really cost him a lot of times. You know, the poor decision making that he would have, because he could have outboxed Mickey Ward. Mickey Ward's a tough fighter, but if you box him, you beat him easy. You know what I mean? And Gatti got himself drawn into the first fight. He was beating Mickey Ward easy. He was really beating him easy, and then he drew himself into banging with Mickey Ward, and that's why he lost the first fight. Second fight, again, he drew himself into, but he kind of composed himself a lot more, and because of that, he was able to beat Mickey Ward the other two times. He should never have lost that fight to Mickey Ward. It should never have gone to a trilogy. He fought stupid in the first fight. But it is what it is. Any fight with Mickey Ward was always going to be a tough fight. As Zab Judah will tell you, that was his toughest fight. But he boxed him. And once you box Mickey Ward, he's not going to be able to touch you enough to beat you. He can't corner you. He can't lock it down, you know. But Mickey Ward was always a tough customer, even though he never became world champion. Arturo Gatti is another Hall of Famer, and he really does deserve it. Actually, this is weird to say, but the great Mildred Taylor, who's still alive to this day, I don't know if he's in prison and stuff. I hope not. I hope they be treating him for his dementia. But that dude, Mildred Taylor, actually, I thought he had a stronger resume than Arturo Gatti. Mildred Taylor don't have a strong resume as Arturo Gatti, and Buddy McGirt actually has about a similar resume to Arturo Gatti, and Buddy McGirt also inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Of course, the claim to fame with Buddy McGirt was beating Simon Brown, the great welterweight champion. I think I'm probably going into the Boxing Hall of Fame too. So I think Simon Brown, who's a Hall of Famer, I believe, you know, because he beat Simon Brown. But then the counterpart to that is, you know, like I said before, Jesse James Leah was beaten by Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti knocked him out. Of course, Simon Brown was more in his prime when Buddy McGirt beat him. So I think that kind of chokes it up higher. But they both, basically, when I look at Buddy McGirt's resume and I watch at Gatti's resume, it's kind of more or less the same. The only difference is Gatti actually went through much more weight classes. So he went all the way up from super featherweight to welterweight. He fought all the way up to welterweight, okay? And always had heavy hands. You know, and always he would come from behind to win. You know, Gatti was known for pulling things out of his butt and knocking out guys that was just outboxing him and stuff. That's what made Gatti so great, actually. It's kind of sad that a lot of that information is lost because, you know, when he fought Floyd called him a C-class fighter. But Arturo Gatti was never a C-class fighter, okay? He didn't have the quickness and speed of Floyd, so it looked vastly different. And then he was doing quite well in the first couple of rounds against Floyd, and then he lost discipline when Floyd hit him. And he thought that Floyd held him and hit him. We didn't hold him and hit him, but he's looking at the referee. And he tried to get back Floyd, and that's when he started to get his ass beat because, you know, he kind of was, you know, too anxious to get in there, and he'd get tagged up. But he was doing well. He was staying low. He was jabbing from low to high, just like Buddy McGirt was telling him to do. And it was pretty competitive for the first 2 rounds, and then he kind of, you know, veered away from that. Now, another fighter, I'm just going to go through the ones with Floyd's resume first, but I got some other guys on some other guys' resumes that people overlook. And the problem with it is, a lot of people feel that the guys in black and white were the be-all and end-all. But what people don't realize is the guys in black and white actually accomplished sometimes much less than the guys. You see, what people do is they make excuses. So they say, oh, well, there was less belts back then. Or, the guys in black and white had harder times. It was more rounds. and stuff like that. But the truth be told, um, the truth is, once you look at who you face and who you beat, that's when you begin to realize, oh snap, these guys, as you move through history, these guys was doing some more crazy stuff and accomplishing more things that some of the guys in black and white film, you know? And this is what, see, a lot of people don't really pay attention to boxing. They always busy trying to criticize it and poke holes in things. But as you move further and further away from an era, you begin to see it for what it is. I see it for what it is, and I'm going to tell you how to see it for what it is. No matter what era it is, it's the one thing that remains true. Who you face and who you beat determines to a high extent if your career was at what level your career was at. Just remember that. Yes, it does matter when you face them, of course. And it also matters what were the stakes, because some people show up for the higher stakes. So if it was a championship fight, they might show up, whereas you might have beat them when it wasn't a championship fight. I'll give you an example. Roberto Duran versus Esteban de Asus. Wasn't a championship fight on the line. He got beat by Esteban de Asus. But once it was a championship fight on the line, he beat Esteban de Asus. You understand what I'm saying? Some guys show up when it's at a certain level that the stakes are high. So just remember, all of that you got to put in context. That's why they say when. It's not just whether they're in their primes or not, or if they're washed up or not. That is an important factor. Don't get it twisted. But it can also be the stakes involved. So anyway, let's talk about some others. Diego Corrales. Now, if y'all feel that Diego Krause ain't gonna make the Boxing Hall of Fame, you gotta be smoking something, okay? That was the most dominant super featherweight and lightweight, all right, of his era. He was one of the most dominant. It was him and Jose Luis Castillo, barring Floyd Mayweather, who beat Diego Corrales at super featherweight and who beat Jose Luis Castillo at lightweight twice. There ain't nobody else that beat those guys. Those guys ruled those divisions. If there never was no Floyd Mayweather in existence, them guys would have been known as the ultimate. And they fought each other. And they split it. So Castillo got one, Diego Krause got one. They were the most dominant super featherweights and lightweights of the division. Jose Luis Castillo ranked in the top 25 greatest lightweights of all time. And Diego Corrales is classed as one of the most dominant super featherweights and lightweights of the time. These were the great titans of the division. Okay, we had somebody called Acelino Freitas. We had somebody called Joe Casamayor. Each one of these guys, at some point in time, ruled both divisions. Acelino Freitas was the guy when Floyd left the division who was running things at super featherweight. He had beaten Joe Casamayor. He had dominated the super featherweight division. He hadn't faced Floyd Mayweather, right? He then moved up to lightweight, and he was dominating. I think he had the WBO title or something like that. And then Diego Corrales came on the scene. He fought Diego Krause. Diego Corrales stopped him, okay? You only got to beat Diego Corrales at super featherweight and lightweight was Floyd Mayweather. When Jose Luis Castillo actually beat Diego Krause, and he was beating Diego Krause in the first fight too, but when he beat him, Jose Luis Castillo was overweight. He didn't come in on weight. That's how he beat Diego Krause. That's the only way he had to cheat to beat Diego Krause, which is crazy. All right, Diego Krause is a force to reckon with at lightweight and super featherweight. It's just what it is. Okay, outside of that weight class, he wasn't as effective, and that's typical. You look at the great lightweights of all time. Once they came out of their, I don't care what era you're talking about. Once they stepped up to welterweight, they wasn't as great. Okay, so freaks of nature, Jose Luis Castillo and Diego Krause, when it comes to lightweight and super featherweight, these guys was the men to beat. And they stayed dominant for years. So are these two guys going into the international boxing? Absolutely. And here's the thing that pushes it over the edge, kind of like with Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. They had one of the most iconic fights in the history of boxing. And again, iconic fights get you into the Boxing Hall of Fame. We talk about Rocky Graciano and Tony Zale. We talk about Zerdan and Jake LaMotta. Okay, these are iconic fights, and the iconic fights, great fights, always help you get into the Boxing Hall of Fame, especially when you have other achievements. These were the two most dominant lightweights, and Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo clashed, and what a clash it was. And the first fight was so dramatic, how Diego Corrales stopped Jose Luis Castillo after Jose Luis Castillo dropped Diego Corrales 3 times, that it's, without bar none, one of the greatest fights in history at lightweight. Okay? So, if you guys haven't seen that fight, well, you should go watch it. These two guys are going down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. There's no if, buts, or maybes about that. Okay? The other fighter that's going down in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, we're not even going to dispute this, is Manny Pacquiao. Okay? Nobody's disputing that. Canelo Alvarez is already a Hall of Famer, and his career is not even over. Okay? So we're not even going to talk about Canelo Alvarez, right? How many Hall of Famers has he faced? How many Hall of Famers has he beaten already? All right. The other guy that's going down into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, I'm just telling y'all right now, this is just what's going to happen, is Ricky Hatton. And the reason Ricky Hatton is going, first of all, he already qualifies to some degree because of 2 things. He was one of the most dominant super lightweights in the super lightweight division. He ran it for about 5 years. And on top of that, he beat the super lightweight that was out there, which was Castillo. Okay? So, not only was he the most dominant super lightweight, but if that wasn't enough, he also went up to welterweight and beat one of the most difficult welterweights of that time, which was Louis Collazo. Louis Collazo was a southpaw, slick, very difficult fighter. He gave Andre Berto all he could handle. He gave Shane Mosley all he could handle. Okay? He gave Keith Thurman all he could handle, even though Keith Thurman stopped him and he was a veteran at the time. He wasn't in his prime. He was the prime, undefeated Louis Collazo that Ricky Hatton faced. And Louis Collazo was, tattooing Ricky Hatton in the final rounds of that fight. But still, Ricky Hatton managed to make it out of there. You know, Louis Collazo was closing in for the kill. Kind of like Shane Mosley versus Miguel Cotto. Except it was much more devastating. So Ricky Hatton's going to go down in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He's going to be on Pacquiao's resume. He's going to be on Floyd's resume. He's going to be on what's that kid's name? I can't remember his name. The welterweight champion that Paulie Malignaggi beat him. He's going to be on his resume as well as I believe Ricky Hatton's going to be on. I think that's about it. He's going to go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. There's no if, buts, or maybe. One of the most popular fighters also of all time. Very exciting fights. He's going down into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay? There are guys already in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. We've got Miguel Cotto. That's in there. Marquez. Mosley. Oscar. Gaddy's already there. And then the other guy that's going to go down in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He was already in the World Boxing Hall of Fame, but they closed that one down. Janara Hernandez. You say, well, why Janara Hernandez? Well, one, he was a long-reigning super featherweight champion. He has 1 loss as a super featherweight champion. That was Floyd Mayweather. He's had every single belt that was necessary. He had the WBA. He had the WBC belt. At the time, in 1990s, the only other belt you had to get was the IBF. Okay? I believe the IBF champion at the time was either Robert Garcia, who is now a great, excellent trainer, or it was the guy before Robert. What I can tell you is that Janara Hernandez had a very lengthy career, and in addition to that, he beat, I believe it was 4 or 5 world champions and future world champions. of which one of them is a Hall of Famer, Azuma Nelson. He beat Azuma Nelson. Um, so, and I believe he fought another guy. I don't know if the guy became a world champion. I don't think he did. But the guy he had to draw with, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I can't remember his name right now. It wasn't Alvarez. It wasn't Rosendo Alvarez. Rosendo Alvarez faced, I believe he faced Ricardo Lopez. So that's not the guy. But the guy that he faced was the top contender for most of his career. He never became world champion. And he drew with that guy. But nonetheless, Janara Hernandez, a long, lengthy career as a super featherweight champion. He had all the super featherweight champion major belts, which was the WBC and WBA. He didn't have the IBF, even though the IBF came into circulation in 1980 something. But he had two major belts, the oldest belts, and he was a hell of a fighter, crafty, skilled. Londas was no pushover, and he beat him. So he's going to go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. So this is the guys that will go down, I believe, in Floyd's the Hall of Famers that will go down in Floyd's history in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And lots of people tell me, oh, that they never gonna get in, and so on. I'm like, dude, they already got in. They were Janara Hernandez, Miguel Cotto, Diego Corrales, Jose Luis Castillo were actually nominees to be inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame. It's a matter of time before those guys go in there. But we're talking about Canelo. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao. Got to go in there. No ifs, buts, or maybes. Ricky Hatton's going in there. Zab Judah's going in there. Diego Corrales, Jose Luis Castillo, and Janeiro Hernandez, they're all going into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And some of y'all don't understand why, and I'm explaining to you why they will go in there. Now let's talk about some other guys that people say will not go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, and they're definitely going in the Boxing Hall of Fame. When you look at Bernard Hopkins' resume, a lot of people say, well, what's his name that got beat? Antonio Tarver. People say Antonio Tarver. He didn't do enough to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm gonna tell you why he's gonna get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. First one, beat Roy Jones Jr. All right, that's a Hall of Famer. Now, I'm not saying that beating a Hall of Famer is enough to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that at all. But here's the other accolades that Antonio Tarver had. He also beat 6 or 7 other former world champions. Okay. On top of that, let's not forget, besides him being lineal champion, he was a champion before that as well. He had the titles. I think he got stripped. He rematched Roy Jones Jr. and beat him again. So out of 3, he had the best of 3. Okay. Now, even though Bernard Hopkins beat him, Antonio Tarver has, through the ages, he moved up from light heavyweight all the way up to heavyweight, and he has won a lot of his heavyweight fights. In fact, Antonio Tarver has never been stopped ever in his career. And if you just go and take a look at his resume and some of the guys that Antonio Tarver has beaten, of course he's a small heavyweight, so he's not a lot of big heavyweights that he's beaten. But when you look at the other guys that he beaten, and the world champions that he beat, I believe including Glenn Johnson. I think he beat Glenn Johnson as well. He was on a tear after he beat Roy Jones Jr. He was on a real roll. He is Hall of Fame worthy. And a lot of people say, well, Antonio Tarver, never going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Hold on a second. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show y'all. I wonder how can I do that. If I can pull it up. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So he beat Danny Green. Those of you know Danny Green, Australian fighter. I believe he was the the IBF cruiserweight world champion, something like that. Former. He beat him. He beat Clinton Woods, who was, I believe he was the light heavyweight champion at a certain point in time. He also beat Glenn Johnson, like I said before. We know he was the super middleweight champion. We know he was, I think he was middleweight champion. Also, he's a guy that knocked out Roy Jones Jr. He also beat Roy Jones Jr. twice, and he also beat I'm trying to remember, not Eric Haddock, some other guy. Montel Griffin. He beat Montel Griffin as well, and he retired. By the way, he knocked out Danny Green. This is at cruiserweight. Now he never won a cruiserweight title because a lot of guys was ducking and dodging him because he had good defense. Antonio Tarver was from the 1996 Olympics, compatriot of Floyd Mayweather. Okay. And a lot of people say Antonio Tarver, he's not going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, mainly because he didn't win another title after he lost his title, but he had beaten a lot of good fighters and guys all the way up to heavyweight. Okay. James Toney got to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Now I know Roy Jones Jr. is inducting. I believe he's inducted this year, along with James Toney. James Toney was inducted this year, so James Toney's now in the Boxing Hall of Fame along with Roy Jones Jr. But people were like, why James Toney wasn't? He should have been a first ballot inductee. I think they just wanted to have him the same year with Roy. But James Toney had to go into it. He just had to. I mean, beat Evander Holyfield. Come on, man. Come on now. All right. But yes, I think Antonio Tarver, like I said before, a lot of people don't believe that Antonio Tarver would go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but I truly believe he should. And then, of course, he lost to the Hall of Famer Bernard Hopkins. He lost also to Roy Jones Jr. He split another Hall of Famer, and he lost another fight to somebody. I'm trying to remember. Oh, he lost to what's the guy's name? Chad Dawson. Yeah, Chad Dawson's not going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but he was a hell of a fighter. Hell of a light heavyweight fighter before he got derailed. And it's really sad because he could have become somebody to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but he's not going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. So I'm saying this because, Sergio Martinez, who probably go into the Boxing Hall of Fame as well, and Sergey Kovalev, who would probably go into the Boxing Hall of Fame as well, haven't accomplished anything near what Antonio Tarver has. Okay? You just listen to the names I just spoke about. You have to put some respect on it. And he beat Roy Jones Jr. twice, so you had to put some respect on Antonio Tarver's name. He's probably going to be an inductee into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Even though, remember, he fought in 3 divisions. He fought at, now he was a small heavyweight, but he fought at heavyweight, cruiserweight, and light heavyweight. He was mostly a light heavyweight though. So, not all Hall of Famers are equal. Okay, we got Hall of Famers who we call all-time greats. I'm not going to say that Antonio Tarver is an all-time great necessarily, even though he probably is, based on his resume. But his resume is a little too scant for me to say he's an all-time great. You know what I'm saying? Roy Jones Jr. is an all-time great. You know what I mean? But he wasn't no fluke, Antonio Tarver. I'm going to tell you that one. He's a real one. He just never had as much opportunities, and some bad situations happened to him. Kind of took him out of the game for a minute. But by and large, that's a dude that's going down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. You can better believe that. You better believe that. And I think he was active a little too much. So we just gotta wait a little bit. But he's going down into the Boxing Hall of Fame. And I hear people say, well, he's not going. And he is going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. You don't beat Roy Jones Jr. twice, showing that it ain't no fluke. And then on top of that, you're beating top guys in your division. And then on top of that, you go into another division and you beating other top guys there. No, come on, man. He may not have won a championship, but again, like I said before, it's not just about winning champions. It's just who you face, who you beat, how you look when you beat them. Okay? He stopped Danny Green. This Danny Green who beat Roy Jones Jr. Stopped Roy Jones Jr. You know what I'm saying? You gotta give respect where respect is due. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna talk to another fighter that lots of people say, oh, he's not going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Oh, he is going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay. Um, this fighter is a fighter who has been overlooked for a little bit, but he will be going in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Um, the great Michael Moore. He hasn't gone in there yet, but he will. Michael Moore was not a heavyweight. Understand that. This is a guy that came up from light with heavy. Okay? He wasn't cruiserweight like Holyfield. He jumped from light heavy all the way up to heavyweight. Okay? He did something like what Roy Jones Jr. did. He jumped from light heavy all the way up to heavyweight. And if you look at Michael Moore's resume, there's no way in hell Michael Moore is not going into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. All right? I don't care what nobody say. He's going into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer. Okay? I believe he was a two-time heavyweight world champion, if I'm not mistaken. IBF, and I believe he was also the if I'm not mistaken, he was undisputed heavyweight world champion as well. Okay? Yes, he lost to George Foreman. He was kicking his ass, but then he got a little careless and on the inside, and George Foreman put him to sleep. Okay? But, again, George Foreman, a Hall of Famer. All-time great. So, you get beat by an all-time great. Yeah, he's a little bit old in the tooth. I mean, it is what it is. He never got a rematch with George Foreman, by the way. Rematched Evander Holyfield. Holyfield beat him back. But Michael Moore was a hell of a fighter. I just wish he had listened to his trainer a little bit more. Very intellectual guy, very cerebral guy. Very, very particular and very articulate and very focused and streamlined. He really was a great fighter, but he had a little bit miss. A little hard-headed, intellectual, heady, and sometimes intellectual, heady people, sometimes they don't listen. They underestimate, and this is his downfall. I think Michael Moore's downfall more than anything else was just the fact that he had mad skills and abilities and just sort of sometimes didn't listen to the extra pair of eyes out there. Tony Atlas, say what you want about him, he had those intuitive eyes and he could see what was happening. And he more than always trust Teddy's sight. I wish he had, because he would definitely have beaten George Foreman. He definitely would have kicked Holyfield's ass again. But you got to count on the guy who has the extra pair of eyes to see from a different angle. And if you trust your judgment and you really trust what you see, then you tell him, you give him feedback. You say, well, don't be nodding your head to him, and then you don't execute what he's telling you to do. You could either give him some feedback. Tell him, well, this ain't working because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Have a dialogue with him. You know what I mean? And Michael was a very, very, very intelligent fighter. You could tell. Very smart fighter. So I just felt sometimes, he should have trusted Teddy's judgment and even have a dialogue with Teddy. I know Teddy was very forceful, and sometimes at times he was trying to get Michael Moore. He was trying to motivate Michael Moore, because I believe his pride and joy was Michael Moore. Actually, Teddy Atlas' greatest achievement was with Michael Moore, not so much with Mike Tyson, but with Michael Moore. And Michael Moore is just such a tremendous fighter, and that man needs to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. There's no way that man is not going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. There's no way. Because what y'all don't understand is that man was not a heavyweight. Michael Moore, I'm going to say it again. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy. Chris Bird wasn't a heavyweight. And Michael Moore was not a heavyweight. If you call him Michael, he was a small heavyweight then. Very small heavyweight. And Evander Holyfield wasn't a big heavyweight, right? And such a tremendous fighter. Unfortunately for Michael, as intelligent as he was and as sharp and smart as he was, I think he got derailed somewhere along the line. Even though he bounced back and became a true champ again, he kind of bounced off the radar a little bit. But incredible fighter. I think George Foreman's experience and the fact that Michael Moore didn't really take heed to what Teddy Atlas was saying. Teddy Atlas was telling him, don't fight on the inside like that. I know you think you got the angles, but this dude's trying to set you up for something. I remember Teddy saying that to Michael Moore. Michael Moore was like, yeah, come on, bro. That's what cost you the fight. So it was range. And Teddy was trying to show you should kind of stick him, keep him on the outside a little bit because he's going to try something to set you up. Teddy could see it coming. And Michael couldn't see it coming because he thought this was a piece of cake. Just a lesson to boxers out there. Don't not respect your opponent. Always respect your opponent. Always expect the unexpected from them. Always, no matter how, especially when the fight is going easy, and this is note to Errol Spence again out there. You know, the fight was going easy for you with Ugas, and you lost focus for a second. Don't let your opponent lull you to sleep in a fight. Stay focused. Stay streamlined, focused, straight through. And watch for them. Watch for them trying to do something to you because they may be lulling you into a trap. You know, and that's what Foreman was able to do with Michael. He saw the shot and he was like, all right, cool. Because that's what Foreman do, right? His thing is, he's a knockout artist. You give him the opportunity, he's going to take it, right? And you know, what I like about boxers today is they understand that. People say, oh, the boxers today, they don't take risks. Oh, they do. They take risks, but they call calculated risk. They're not going to take no stupid risk. You know what I'm saying? You don't take no stupid risk. Boxers today have learned from guys like Michael Moore. You could have all the skills in the world. You could be the smartest guy ever. You make one dumb decision in that ring, you're going to pay for it. Ask what's the guy's name? That faced Jamal Charlo. He made one mistake. There's not room for error out there. He made one mistake. What's the guy named from Detroit? He fought just recently and he won his fight. He beat Jamal Charlo, and he was beating him in the fight, but he made a mistake. He decided to trade hooks with the dude, and now dip. If you're gonna trade hooks with a dude and you're an orthodox fighter, you dip into the hook. Keep your head off the center line so you don't get hit with a hook too. You know what I'm saying? The dude already got power. You know. That was his mistake. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care if you block here as you throw in the hook. No. Get completely out the way and throw the hook. Throw it as an overhand hook. That's a better way. Anyway, you get more leverage. You know, those kinds of, they call it rookie mistakes these days. And, you know, you make calculated risk. You take calculated risk. You're going to take risk. And you're going to do it, but you're going to do it in what we call defensive responsible ways. You know, defensive responsible ways. You know, that's how you box. Box without defense in mind. You always think defensively. You know, people say, you know, James Toney, Perrin Whitaker, you know, Nicolina Loesch, Willie Pett, Charlie Burley, Mike McCallum, Eric Booker, Eddie Booker. You know, these are great defensive fighters. You know, Floyd Mayweather. You know, yeah, because these guys were schooled properly. Don't think that it didn't just come out of the clear blue sky. You know, they were schooled. They took teachings on how to. Tony Canzoneri, Benny Leonard. You know, these guys took their schooling properly. Even Sugar Ray Robinson. You know, he bend into it and block up the whole area. You know, defense is most important in boxing. Okay? Defense is most important in boxing. You know, and Michael Moore had decent defense, and then of course his stance helped him a bit. But he exposed himself and he took what we call unnecessary risk. People don't like that because fights they're not as dramatic anymore. You know, Mickey Bay fell for it. And Mickey Bay had decent defense. You know, very good defense, taught by the best defensive fighters ever. But he made that rookie mistake with John Molina. And he's trying to showboat to the crowd and stuff. You don't do that. You stay focused from the beginning bell to whenever that fight ends. Okay, you have to stay focused. And so boxers today, like Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman, all these guys, they stay razor focused. They dial in. You know, people don't understand and appreciate how far boxing has come. Anyway, let's talk about some more Hall of Famers here. You can't afford to lose focus. Okay, the guy I'm thinking about is not Erickson Lupin. He'll come to me. He's from Detroit. He lost focus for a second, and that was all it took. You know, you have to stay dialed in for the entire duration of a fight. All right. You lose focus for 1 second, you could hit the canvas real quick, very hard and very soon and not get back up. So let's talk about another one. So Michael Moore, definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. And you know, in his era, we're talking about some great Hall of Fame fighters, great fighters of his era, Michael Moore's era. You know, we always think about certain guys being Hall of Famers. You know, I do believe Bo Jack will be a Hall of Famer if he's not a Hall of Famer as yet. Lou Tendler, those are some throwback guys. If he's not a Hall of Famer yet, he should be. Lou Jenkins as well. When we talk about Hall of Famers, you just have to look at the guys that these guys faced and the guys these guys beat. You know, how many of them as well, quantity. You know, what their resume looked like. It's all about who you face, who you beat, because the competition, the level of competition you face, is what determines if you're a good fighter, very good fighter, you know, great fighter, one of the greatest fighters of all time. That's really what makes you. People say, well, great fights as well. That's true. That's also true. Memorable fights. All those things make you great. And one of the best fighters would be those who pretty much beat everybody and kind of separate themselves from everybody, you know, or most of them. Beat most people. So that's what you're looking at. In the Boxing Hall of Fame, if you're looking at credentials for boxers, I'm talking about, it's things like that. And of course, exciting fights. You know, Good Gotti, it was about blood, sweat, and tears, and blood and guts. You know, warrior. And they feel he epitomized that. So, you know, that's the description of why he got in there. But if you look at his credentials, it does get him in there. It does get him in there. Because it's almost the same credentials that Buddy McGirt had. It's almost the same credentials as Boom Boom Mancini had. So, you know, it gets you in there. You look at this fighter, they say, you know, we talk about great Mexican fighters. We talk about Juan Marquez. You know, we talk about Julio Cesar Chavez, Eric Morales. We talk about Marco Antonio Barrera as Hall of Famers. You know. But, you know, there are other Mexican fighters that people overlook as going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. You know. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know, man. You have to put it in perspective. Now, Marquez is one of the greatest fighters of all time. Okay, bar none. 4-divisional world champion, lineal champion in multiple divisions, lightweight as well as super featherweight. Unified champion at featherweight, super lightweight world champion. So, you know, Marquez has made a name for himself, mostly post-prime. And phenomenally so. He's had these great fights with Manny Pacquiao. Okay, that kind of defined him and made him an all-time great. But we were talking about in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. fighters that I believe will go in there. I do believe there is a Mexican fighter that people keep on overlooking all the time to go into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. They overlook him, but I think he should get in there, right? Um, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if he'll get in there, but I'm not gonna waste your guys' time, except to say I believe that this fighter has done enough and faced enough notable fighters to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. All right. Um, his background is, I believe, a very impressive, very impressive background. And some of you are gonna say, well, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Uh, but I think he is. Okay. Um, Came up short a couple times, but I just think he's going down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. When I think of the era he came up in, now he was world champion. I only think he was world champion once. Okay, and southpaw fighter, by the way, came up in Chavez era, but came before Chavez. Um, I do believe he will go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. I think he is a World Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, but that has closed now. Anybody knows who I'm talking about? He was a world champion. In fact, Pernell Whitaker was robbed against him. But I do believe he's going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Actually has the same name as Zergo, who is at light heavyweight right now. That's right. His name is Jose Luis Ramirez. I consider him a Hall of Famer already. I think he's going to go down to the Boxing Hall of Fame. Mainly because of the people he faced. And may not have won all the fights, but he beat a number of world champions. Even though they may not have been world champions at the time. He faced them, and he got wins over one or two of them, okay? He's faced a number of Hall of Famers, okay? I think that Jose Luis Ramirez, and I'm not talking about Jose Luis Ramirez from now. I'm talking about the both of them. There's one at lightweight, the super lightweight, and there's one at light heavyweight. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about Jose Luis Ramirez from the time of Julio Cesar Chavez time. I think he started boxing somewhere in the 80s, and he went all the way up till I believe the 2000s. This is the guy I'm talking about, and was a great lightweight champion. Nobody ever had an easy time with him. I think he was only stopped once by, I think, Ruben Olivares. I believe it was the guy that beat him and stopped him. Tough as nails. I believe he's going to go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And all you got to do is watch the resume of fighters that he faced and then the resume of fighters he beat. And he was always a tough challenge. Now, I do believe the only guy who I think beat him pretty easily was, besides Pernell Whitaker, was he gave Julio Cesar Chavez a tough night as well. Was strangely Boom Boom Mancini actually outboxed him. But and Boom Boom Mancini, by the way, was the son of was his father. Trying to remember if it's Leonard Mancini. I can't remember what his name was. Lenny, I think it's Lenny Mancini. Lenny Mancini was actually a great fighter as well. Lenny Mancini faced Sandy Angan. Gave him a good fight. Okay. So Boom Boom Mancini came from good stock. Just like Lenny Mancini ended up in the army, but who knows where he'd have reached if he had stayed in boxing, and the war didn't happen. But Boom Boom Mancini had a great trainer in his father. So, but uh, as I said before, Boom Boom Mancini is a Hall of Famer. Julio Cesar Chavez is a Hall of Famer. You know, I mean, the Hall of Famers this man faced. I mean, God darn it, there's a lot of Hall of Famers this dude faced. He got beat by a couple of them, though. But he also beat one or two of them. Um, so, like I said before, Jose Luis Ramirez is a guy you cannot overlook in the Boxing Hall of Fame. That man has to go down in the Boxing Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's still alive or if he's dead or what, but that was a hell of a fighter. Tough as nails. You ain't putting that guy down. Southpaw, but rough and rugged, walk you down, walk you down, walk through a hail of fire, come get you. He was one of them guys. I mean, Perno made him look stupid in the second fight, but he's a dude that he seek and destroy. That was Ramirez thing. He was tough as nails. You ain't knocking out Ramirez like that. I mean, Olivares did, but I don't think anybody else did. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ruben Olivares is also another Hall of Famer. I mean, this dude faced Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. I gotta find out how many Hall of Famers he actually faced in his career. So I just think this dude should be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Period. I just think he's worthy of that. I don't know if he's been nominated to be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I wouldn't be surprised if he has been. But he should be in the International Boxing. He was in the World Boxing Hall of Fame, inducted. So I expect him to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So I just wanted to put some of the names out there. If you guys got some other names that you think would be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, please feel free to do so. This video was pretty long again. I don't mind having long videos with you guys. I'm supposed to be making bread right now, or bake. I'm going to finish making my bake before I go to sleep. It's going to be late. It's probably 11 something right now. But I wanted to just talk about it with you guys. Who do you think is going to go down into the International Boxing Hall of Fame? Give us a reason why you think so. Maybe in 5-10 years time, or maybe very soon to be inducted. But I think there's a lot more names that need to be inducted into the National Boxing Hall of Fame. But I think they want to ISO first the more modern guys and then go back into time. But they'll also do some of the old school guys. I really appreciate the International Boxing Hall of Fame for what they're doing, because this will keep a record of some of the great guys of different eras. I mean, if you're talking about Julio Cesar Chavez's era, there was some killers in his era, man. Chavez fought killers, man, straight killers. I could name them. He's got like 15 killers he faced. You know what I'm saying? Beat. And then out of them 15 killers that he beat, a couple of them, going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And then on top of that, he also faced some other killers post prime, and Costa Azul, Oscar De La Hoya. He even faced Mildred Taylor again. I mean, he faced some killers. And Julio Cesar Chavez is one of the greatest fighters of all time, no doubt about it, bar none. Just faced a lot of killers and killed a lot of killers. So this is why, like I said before, and I'm going to say it again, in the previous video, if you guys watch these long videos, if you have, I don't mind doing long videos. Sometimes it's good to do long videos. I don't have a problem doing long videos. I'll do some short ones, don't worry. But these are long ones just to give you guys a little bit more history in boxing and just enjoy the sport, But in terms of killers, like I said before, it would be nice to see Julio Cesar Chavez share the ring with Floyd just as an exhibition. Nothing too serious, that they're going to trade blows and hurt the old man. We don't need to hurt the old man like that. I'm not saying he ain't tough, and I'm not saying he's not rugged, but I'm just saying, you got to preserve the legacy of these people. You can't just go willy-nilly on an icon. You know what I'm saying? You have to have some respect for that. Now, Floyd, on the other hand, facing a younger Don Moore, I think that's a good challenge for Floyd because Don Moore is not no slouch, and he's sparred Floyd before a number of times, and Floyd would tell you he got the better of him at times, and Floyd got the better of Don Moore at times. So there's two guys that know each other. That's definitely going to be a plus, and if they're going to go for fireworks, that would be great. Give the people some entertainment. Um, so that's why I said Don Moore is probably going to be the toughest opponent that Floyd is facing a good while. Uh, you know, Exhibitions like Logan Paul, Tension. Tension wasn't a bad fighter. I mean, I was pretty impressed with him. Southpaw got that nice straight lead left. It's just he was just too small for Floyd. He was just he was too small for him. Floyd was just way too big for him. So that's why that fight ended the way it did. But Don Moore is around about Floyd's size. He's actually taller and longer than Floyd. He's 5'10" with I believe it's a 74-inch reach. So he's actually longer than Floyd and taller than Floyd. Um, Trained by Roger Mayweather, Roger Mayweather's protege. So he knows boxing. And Floyd can't just come any old how at Don Moore. I don't think so. He'll tattoo up Floyd and make him look stupid. So Floyd has to know that. I even look at the sparring session with Don Moore just recently with Floyd, and I think Don Moore actually handled himself relatively well. I mean, Floyd was kind of dominating him at a certain point in time, but Floyd at that time was the bigger guy. Don Moore was fighting at lightweight, I believe, and Floyd was fighting, of course, at welterweight. So Don Moore was, but Don Moore handled himself. I thought he did pretty well. Floyd wasn't trying to really knock him out or anything, so it was good work. Um, in this exhibition, I don't see Don Moore knocking out Floyd because Floyd got that defense, but it's going to push Floyd a bit. I would like to see how he performs against that dude. And even though he's was a sparring partner, he's not really a sparring partner. But I'm happy that Don's getting some shine still because he was really a very promising fighter, and I don't know what happened, whether it's business or something derailed him. And I remember he had an altercation with another dude, and I don't know what happened after that. After that, I haven't heard anything from him. So since 2016, he ain't fought, and that's kind of sad. So I'm glad that Floyd's doing an exhibition with him, so people could kind of be reminded of the kind of fighter he is. I don't know if he'll do any more pro fights, Don. I hope he does do one or two more pro fights. If he does well against Floyd in this exhibition, hopefully that sort of launches him out there with his name, and hopefully that can help him get some more work, some more pro fights under his belt. You know, uh, Face some better fighters moving forward. So I think it's gonna be like a pretty intense sparring session, Floyd with Don, and hopefully that lines him up, gets some eyes on him, and hopefully kind of revives his boxing career some. All he got to do is do well against Floyd, because Floyd, you remember it's an exhibition, so while Floyd showcasing his skills, uh, and if Don could, somehow find a way to knock him out, that would be great. That ain't gonna happen, but he's gonna try. Once Floyd doesn't knock out Don, or once Don puts on a hell of a performance, whether Floyd knocks him out or not, because Floyd seemed to be more of a killer these days. He's trying to stop guys. So Floyd's going to be coming straight at him, and we'll see what happens after that. If Don is can hold Floyd off or can actually come at Floyd and put some work on him, that would be good. Because Floyd is some of the ability that Floyd used to have. He don't particularly have that anymore in terms of plasticity. I'm not limiting the dude to anything. I think he's in tremendous shape for a 45-year-old, but for a 45-year-old, he ain't in tremendous shape for a 20-something-year-old. I'm sure he's phenomenal still. He's still quick and all of that. I'm sure he's still athletic, but for a 45-year-old, I mean, he would school some 20-something-year-olds. I'm sure he would because he got so much knowledge. but I don't think he's, I don't think he has a 20-something-year-old body. If that's what you're trying to get at now, no way, shape, or form. You can see his body is matured, and he's you know there's limitations to his body, like anything. You know what I mean? But for a 45-year-old, phenomenal shape. Um, and I don't know if he's done any stem cell work or anything like that. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. And maybe if he has, then that's gonna help him some. You know. Um, but Mike Tyson looks tremendous. I mean, he's in ridiculously tremendous shape. He reminds me of those stunt guys who do stunts and stuff in their 50s. He's in tremendous shape. So I would love to see also Mike Tyson, doing this thing in the ring if he wants to. I mean, it's up to them. If they want to do something, if they want to still keep fighting. Evander Holyfield, not so much, but again, I don't mind if I don't fall. Evander Holyfield, try to do something against Mike, but he can't afford to. Evander can't afford to put on the performance that he performed, the performance that he had against uh, the last opponent he had. So I mean, the last opponent he had, could have hurt him really bad. And even though I thought he was still weathering the storm, and it was, the rust and everything. But Evander is a guy who go in there and fight tooth and nail. But you gotta regulate the conditions. You can't have, Tyson is plenty for Evander at this point in time. You know what I mean? But the man puts himself at risk to do what he had to do. You know what I mean? To get that payday. So hopefully he got the payday, and it was worth his while. Yeah, but um, you know, I like to see legends in the ring if they want to do it. I'm one of those guys who's like, if you could do it, do it. Because I'm an old guy myself, and I'm going to get in that ring. I'm going to do pro fights. I'm going to put my life on the line. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well get serious about this boxing business. You know what I mean? I'm going to catch you guys later. I'm what you need. You guys have a good one.